Look, I think he thinks it's a good thing. I'm not in any way demeaning his good faith, although he's demeaning mine. He's talked about people who oppose the deal as crazies, as warmongers, as he's engaged in name calling because he refuses to debate on the merits. I challenge the Obama administration to have a series of Lincoln Douglas great debates. This is the most important foreign policy decision of the century, and we ought to be making this decision after a full debate. But instead, the administration is engaged in name calling and petty attacks on people like Netanyahu and others who oppose this deal. Let's have debates instead of name calling.
They have, let's just say that the press will say that people like you or people like me, I take, when somebody says they want to kill you, I take them at their word. They say they're going to develop a nuclear bomb. They're clear. They're called chanting death to America while we're in negotiations. I believe that they will annihilate the state of Israel if given the means.
Well, I don't think they will because they'll never have an opportunity to. I think I've known Benjamin Netanyahu for 43 years. He's not going to preside over another Holocaust. He will not allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons if they cross his red lines. And they will be crossing his red lines, I believe. So I think this deal makes war more likely rather than less likely. You know, in my book,
could I ask you this? Because when I had Netanyahu on during the Bush administration, I said to him, I can read the tea leaves. The world's going to be at a historic peace, and then you'll be abandoned by the United States. And then you'll have to make the decision, and you will strike because you have a right to survive and live, and the world will then blame you for war.
That's right.
That's going to happen.
I think that's right. Look, I sat in the Oval Office with President Obama, and I asked him the following question. I said, would you ever outsource the defense of Americans to a foreign country? He said, of course not. I said, do you expect Israel to outsource its defense to the United States? He said, no. If Israel feels it's necessary to take action, we will support it. Now we'll wait and see. If not this president, perhaps the next president. You know, in the case against the Iran deal in my book, I chart how Obama changed this policy. In his first term, he had good statements to make. Never will Iran be allowed to develop nuclear weapons. We have a military option to prevent them from doing it. But after his second term, particularly after the midterms when the Democrats lost, he changed his tune. Military option off the table. Let's try to buy 10 years. No more prevention. Let's just contain and postpone. And that endangers the welfare of the United States. It endangers the welfare of America's allies in the Middle East. It prefers Iran, an enemy of America, to Israel, a friend of America.
It's crazy. So now, Alan, I'm assuming you wrote this book so everybody can read it, but I'm sure you want it in the hands of those who are actually making the arguments and can make an impact. How does the average person make an impact on this?
Well, first, I've made available this book to every member of Congress. We're trying to make it available to every staff member as well. I hope people out there who are listening to the show will get the book on Kindle or on Amazon. It's inexpensive and it's quick. Read it and then call your congressperson, call your senator. Make it clear. The vast majority of Americans are opposed to this deal. The majority of senators are opposed to this deal. The majority of
So then what's pushing it through?
What's pushing it through is the president's desire for a deal, for a legacy accomplishment in foreign policy. He thinks it's a good thing, and he's managed to get probably enough Democrats to give him the votes necessary to prevent an overriding of the veto. Look, this should have been a treaty. This is a long-term obligation of the United States, and it should have required 2/3 of the Senate to support it. Instead, the president's manipulated it, so all he needs is 1/3 plus 1 of one House over the objection of the vast majority of Americans who are 2-1 against this deal, over the objection of the Senate, over the objection of the House. He's threatening a veto. Democrats are threatening a filibuster. That's not the way democracy is supposed to work. And the people watching this show ought to tell their congressmen, ought to petition their government for a redress of grievances under the First Amendment. And don't worry that you'll be called unpatriotic. You're being patriotic if you oppose a bad deal that's bad for America and bad for its allies.
I have less than a minute. What do you say to people, the president, when he says this is going to cause war? If you separate now, John Kerry said our dollar will no longer be the reserve currency and there will be war.
I think that's just hysterical pandering. I think there's much more likely to be war if this deal goes through, because Iran will be moving to develop nuclear weapons. We can get a better deal. We should have gotten a better deal. We can have peace. We can have no Iran with nuclear weapons, but we need a strong president, a strong foreign policy to accomplish that. That's why I wrote my book, The Case Against the Iran Deal. And I hope senators and congressmen will read it. In the book, I have the deal outlined, and I go through every provision of it and annotate it, show how bad it is. It's a bad deal.
I will read it myself, and we will pass it on radio. Professor Dershowitz, thank you so much for all of your hard work. Back in a minute.